both.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, somebody who's been calling for action for 8 months is Illinois Congressman and Iraq War veteran Adam Kinzinger. He joins us right now live from Chicago. Congressman, good morning to you.
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you?
What did you think of the president's remarks last night?
Well, look, I want to have some cautious optimism here. This may be the beginning of a broader campaign. He's always reluctant. I mean, you could never imagine the president coming on national television and saying he's going to crush ISIS, because he just doesn't really, frankly, have the courage to do that. But this may be the beginning of a small move. I commend this. But look, this is going to be more than just creating humanitarian corridors or saving the 40,000 on the mountain right now. This is going to continue to happen until ISIS is crushed, and this is only going to grow. They're not going to stop. Their bloodlust is not going to be satisfied. The only thing that can happen is that the West, the United States, has to provide air power to Iraqi troops. One thing to keep in mind really quickly, when American forces get engaged on the battlefield, the first thing they do is call for air power to come in and crush the enemy. The Iraqis are going to need the same thing if they're going to take their territory back.
And it sounds like at this point, Congressman, the air power is there. I heard from somebody in Washington last night. The air power is there essentially to clear the way so that these humanitarian airdrops, they don't get shot out of the sky when they're coming in. Beyond that, that could explain why it's targeted. It's not going to be very broad. Is that really enough to crush ISIS? Because if you can't do it, then what?
Yeah, no, this is not going to be enough to crush ISIS. Again, I think, the president's a very cautious person to a fault, and I think he's just kind of toeing the water here a little bit. This is going to continue to spiral out of control, and the longer he takes to make the decision that ISIS is a very group and has to be destroyed, both in Iraq and Syria, by the way, this is only going to continue to get worse. There are hundreds of Western passports fighting for ISIS that are clean, that could come back into Europe or the United States. It is their stated goal to attack us here at home. And this is in our core interest, not only to prevent genocide, not only to save people, but to protect our homeland here. This is dead serious. I called for these strikes 8 months ago, and only continues to get worse.
Congressman, let's talk about that, because the urgency is coming from these 50,000 people on the mountaintop that we want to try to help aid so that they don't die, right? But the real issue is Americans are worried about putting troops back on the ground, boots on the ground in Iraq. The president saying he doesn't want to do that, but at the same time, yes, everybody's sick of innocent, our heroes dying, but we need to protect our homeland. What's the long-term strategy here? Crushing ISIS, how are we going to do that?
Well, look, I don't know what the president's long-term strategy is. I would never take the idea of boots off the ground off the table. You can do it personally, but to say it, you're only telegraphing to the enemy what we won't do, which gives them an opportunity to do what they need to do. Look, America has this idea that we're war-weary. I understand it, but the reality is we can't pick the world that we live in, and we live in a world with very evil people that want to kill us, want to kill our families, and want to right now create a genocide on 40,000 ethnic minorities.
Well,
I wish we had a different world. We don't.
One thing we have to do is get the Kurds some modern weaponry. They know how to fight. They know how to organize. They are unbelievable at it, but they're using antiquated equipment. They are our true allies in the area. They would help secure that 600-mile border. Now, what do you think to people who say we're war-weary? Guys like you are the ones who fight the war. The military people we talk about worry about the legacy and what they fought for. Shouldn't you guys have a say?
I fully agree with I hear this idea of war weariness, and it shocks me that the President of the United States is on television telling the American people how war weary they are, when the military, the ones that should be war weary, are the ones that are saying, we have to defeat this, we have to protect the homeland. You're absolutely right. The military members I know I still serve do not like to see this happen, and frankly understand that this is a major threat to their homeland and to their families, and we're ready to crush it.
And they assemble in the open right now. ISIS is sitting there wide open. We have drones in the area. This is the time to hit them before they start hiding.
And they're murdering people, innocent people. They're murdering in droves, and it's just a sad thing to see. It's time for the president to stand up and say, America, I know you're tired, but it is in our national interest, because in 10 years, history is going to judge us very, very harshly.
Well, what he did last night was a step in the right direction. The big question is what comes after that. All right. Congressman Adam Kinzinger from Illinois. Sir, thank you very much for joining us on this important Friday.
Thanks for having me.